So let's go ahead and let's get started. And this is kind of a fun one. It is healing responsibilities. Who is really responsible for the healing? And this was something that when I first started out, I had a problem with. I thought that, you know, this was my responsibility to provide healing for these people who came to me. You know, they're giving me compensation. I figured that it was up to me to make sure that they healed. And one of the things that I found out after years of doing this was I was thinking all wrong. And I thought, well, maybe this would be something that would be helpful for people who are out there trying to do some healing and feeling the pressure of having the work being done and expecting some miracle to happen, which Dr. Nelson always does, which I think is really great. But one of the things that kind of prevents us from doing that is thinking that we are responsible for that. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to share my screen with you here and get going. There we go. Everybody can see that? Give me a thumbs up if you can see it. Great. Awesome. Okay, so what we're going to do here, one of the things about, I broke it down as basically what I came up with was 3 different areas. There's actually 4, but we're going to work with these 3. One is the healer, you, whoever is doing the work. The second is the client. And the third is the actual thing that you're working on or the issue. So let's break it down a little bit. Who is responsible? This is the client's healing. You have a client that comes to you, and this happens to me every once in a while that, and actually we've got somebody on the call tonight here that we have a tendency to, we've worked on things and it just doesn't seem to go. And so this is why it was so frustrating for me when I was trying to figure out, what am I doing wrong? What can I do differently? Now, granted, there's always something we can learn, and that's the important thing to remember, is that we're always moving forward. So you have a client that's been faithfully coming to you for relief and they are not progressing. Something's not changing. Usually it's a matter of weight. It could be a couple different things going on with that, but that is one of the things that I find. I want to make sure everybody's on mute here. Okay, so that's one of the things I find is that I always feel like I'm just missing something. So that's kind of our premise here, what we're working with. So let's move forward. Like I said, we're going to break this down and we're going to see what's going on. Now, your role as a healer, you need to remember that you are a facilitator. You are there to help figure out what the subconscious is trying to tell the client. You are there to identify the energy blocks. And that's what we do. Of course, we use muscle testing, right? We are able to do that with muscle testing and be able to, even at a distance, try and dig down. We become detectives. And so that's kind of a cool part of it. And then we're supposed to listen. Once we have a way of communicating with the subconscious, we're to translate what the subconscious is trying to tell the person. Now, if you look back on this, usually what's going on is the subconscious is having an issue. It is trying to let you be aware, if you are the client, or you could be working on yourself, it's trying to let you understand that, hey, we have a problem here. Now, if we look at the old iceberg definition here, we're going to look at the very tip, the part that you can see is your consciousness, and then that huge part that's underneath is your subconscious. Remember that the subconscious is actually doing a whole lot of work that you are not aware of as the consciousness. And of course, that's what we are looking at usually, is that we are the conscious part of it. We make the goals, we try and do things that we want to do, and yet the subconscious is dealing with all the other stuff down there. Remember that the subconscious's job, and we'll get to that when we get to the client here, is to keep them alive. So our job is to facilitate. We are there as a mediator, basically, to translate what's going on. And then we're there to release the energy blocks, or we're there to facilitate the release of the energy blocks. Now, how do we do this as a healer? Reasons, let's look at it this way. What is it that qualifies you to be able to do this work? First of all, you have to have a desire, and that you really want to help, and most of us are. I mean, that's something that we usually have gone through something in our life that would cause us to say, this is something we want to do for other people. I know for me, I lost my restaurant. I was down in the dumps. I owed everybody. There was just so much piled on top of me that I felt like the world was coming down on top of me, and I needed to figure out how to dig my way out. And when I heard Dr. Nelson, and he talked about the emotion code and the ability to heal yourself and be able to figure out what's going on, I jumped on that because it just resonated with me. It was so powerful that I just knew that that was what I wanted to do for myself. And then as I did it, I wanted to do more for other people. So when you're thinking about this, you're looking at this and you're going, you know, your desire to help somebody else, usually from something that you experienced, and then overcoming yourself, and then training and practice. I was talking to somebody the other day. I'm trying to remember the particulars on that, if we were actually doing a session or if it was just a matter of discussing it, because I just came back from Dr. Nelson's retreat that he had in Las Vegas, which is Thursday, Friday, and Saturday. They do a half day on Saturday. And as I was working there, I'm trying to think, I had quite a few conversations. You know me, I like to talk. So as I was talking about that, we were trying to figure out, now see, I've lost my little thread of where I was going originally here, but we have this, and it'll come back to me in just a sec here. But the training and practice, the more we learn, the more we can do for other people. One of the crazy things about the subconscious of our client, let's look at the client here. Oh, okay, I guess I got a little bit more here. Developing faith and trust in yourself. I mean, how many of us have sat there working on a proxy session, which we know is when the client isn't there with us, or it's an animal or a child or something that we have to do this work. And usually when I'm sitting there, when I first started off, I got my magnet here, and I was going over the top of my head, trying to release that energy for that client. And that's a powerful release, and I'm a junkie for energy. I love to feel that release. But I sat there and I thought, am I really getting anywhere? Is it really doing any good? Am I just crazy that I'm sitting here doing this session for somebody who's not here? You know, and I'm afraid that my wife's going to walk by and the door's open or whatever. And she's like, I don't know, my husband's just really off somewhere. And that's kind of what I felt like when I started doing this. But after a while, when I realized that, you know, doing this work, and people would say, oh, just changed me. I just feel so much better. And that is what makes it so rewarding as we learn and we get this faith going on. We're constantly raising our particular level. When I talk about that, and we're doing this for the clients too, I compare it to a radio. You know, the old time radios, I had an old 65 Buick Special that I drove around my grandmother's car, basically, and she had an AM radio in there. And that's for those of you who are old enough. There's some cars that only had AM. And so you had frequencies that you could reach, but they're pretty low. And then it was so cool when FM became available. So when we're working with ourselves and we're raising our level, and remember, like I said, I owed everybody. I was just so consumed with loss, because that was my baby. I had a bankruptcy to tune of 400 grand for that restaurant. And it pretty much wiped out everything that we had. And so I was looking for something that would help me, because I felt like all the doors were closed, the windows were shut. And when I heard Dr. Nelson, it was like somebody opened a window up there and light came through. And I thought, okay, let's see what we can do. And so I needed to be lifted up. And as I got higher, I was able to understand more. AM to FM on the radio makes it so that your spectrum is a whole lot larger, and you can receive more stations. And you know, with more stations comes variety. And as you keep going, it'll take you up even to higher levels where more stuff is available to you. When you get into the upper level, then all of a sudden, that's when intuition starts kicking in. So when intuition starts popping into your head, and it's such a difference. For me, when I first started, I was not a healer. I could test, I could follow directions, and I just did what I was told. And I figured that it had to be a certain way. And then, of course, I discovered that it's a stepping stone. We can get answers to anything, but I had to develop that trust. So a matter of getting used to things. And when that intuition, now when I work with somebody, things pop into my head and I go on, oh, and I didn't trust it to start off with. So I would write them down and I would be afraid to tell the client. And sometimes I say, you know, I feel like this is what's going on. And they'll go, exactly. In fact, I had a young lady here last night, my first client here at the house, and she had driven almost 3 hours, not intentionally. It should have only taken an hour, but she got stuck in traffic and there were some accidents. So by the time she got here, I wanted to make sure she had a good session. And as we were working, this is the second time we worked together, and it was really hard for her. She goes, I just don't feel things. But as we started to work, and I had intuition was popping in, and I said, okay, I feel like this is what's going on. And she got emotional. She said, that's exactly how I feel. So the frequencies rise, and never giving up. Some people, they run into a situation where maybe they can't test correctly and they don't know who to turn to. Well, that would cause an issue for someone to do this work. But that's why you get people around you. I had somebody work on me the other day, and that makes a big difference for me too. Okay, so now let's look at the client's issue. You know what? I think I screwed up. Let's see. Faith, trust, never giving up. Okay, so let's go with this one. Since I got it in the order here, I don't know if this was the right spot, but the client's issue, what the person is dealing with is usually an imbalance. Now, you remember what I said, the reason that the subconscious is so powerful, and it's what's really running our life in reality. When it has an issue, it tries to let you know, but we don't speak. You don't speak subconscious, which is why you need a translator. And it says, you're not listening to me. You're not listening to me for years. You're not listening to me. And finally says, well, we need to change something. Let's see, let's cause some pain. And I'll have pain in the shoulder or pain in the hip or something like that. And so what happens is this pain happens, and the person, the client, is like, I don't know what to do. So it's an energy though. Let's look at the actual imbalance that we're dealing with. And sometimes this is created from an accident or from something that happened to you, but sometimes it's just the subconscious trying to let you know it needs help. And it's always going to be an energy, like an emotion or something like that. I picture these energies like barnacles on the bottom of a boat. So a boat can slide along the water, perfect when it's brand new, and then all of a sudden it starts, if you're in salt water where barnacles are, it'll start collecting on the bottom of the boat, and it will slow the process of the boat down. Very similar to a computer. How many of us have bought a brand new computer? A year later, we're like complaining how slow it is. It's because of all the malware that goes into it. So, and yet everything is energy. And so that's what this imbalance, whatever it is, wherever it is, and it's being manifested. So manifestation, that is something that is in the process of being created. Now, if we look at the quantum world, where we have quantum technologies, quantum physics, and we call it matter unorganized out there. And it is weird stuff. I mean, I've said this before. Einstein, it drove him nuts because it didn't act the way he thought it should act. Now, since then, other scientists have come up with different ways, and they found that when you apply an intelligent source to this matter, that it will actually create, it will manifest like the laws of abundance. It will come and it will actually manifest. Laws of abundance can be good, and when the manifestation can be bad, depending on what you apply to that particular energy. And it's alive. It really is. It's active, let's put it that way, and it's listening, and it will create whatever needs to be done. Well, sometimes we create our own problems. For example, I was working with a client, and she had a situation where she had, I call it make sure I get that right, a threatening feeling. So all through her life for a long time, and we figured it went back about 25 years, when she felt this depression, this energy that was pushing down on her. And when I tested it, And I use my Ultimate Healer charts here, and I've got a spot for entities, and it talked about it being from the imagination. And what happens is that imagination created this threatening feeling, like this feels like, okay, so what's going to happen now? I've got this going on, but when's the other shoe going to drop? When am I going to be? It's like when you're walking down an alley and you're just like, I've been down this alley before, but now it's dark and I just feel like there's just something going on. Well, this has been something that this particular client had created, but that has been manifested. Now, there's always a reason for these things to manifest. It means that there was either something inherited, it could have been something that happened to you, it could have been something that you felt threatened, and the safety of your personage is what the subconscious is always really in charge of, or it's the highlight or the most important thing. What am I saying? I'm trying to say the most important thing, prime directive, something like that. Like I said, it's not there to make you happy. It's not there to make you healthy. If the subconscious feels it needs to do something, it'll actually make a change. And that's what we're talking about. So it knows what's going on. And I know I got a slide in here for that somewhere. But I always feel like if the body can create it, it also can be released and it can be changed. Now the trick is to figure out what do we need to satisfy to make it or allow it to release. And the other thing I put here, when I first started doing this, I thought that it was me that was releasing the energy. What I learned was that's not the case. It's not me. I am the facilitator. What we're really trying to do is we're trying to let the subconscious, let the conscious know what's going on. And when it feels that we have done what we need to, whether it's releasing energies, blocks, emotions, whatever needs to happen, at that particular time, then the subconscious says, okay, I can release that now. And then we allow the subconscious to do the release. You got to remember that that's really what's going on here. It's not the facilitator. So you don't have to have magic special powers to be able to do this. Once you've satisfied the subconscious, then you're able to go ahead and make that progress. So here's the power of the subconscious. And this is on the client's version here, or the client's end of things. The subconscious's job, like I mentioned before, is to keep you breathing. Think about it. It's out of a job if your heart stops. And that's the most important part, which is why we always focus originally on the heart wall, because that's all the protections that you've been given as the subconscious is trying to keep you alive. And it's not there to make you happy or healthy. And it creates a Gordian knot. Now, I don't know if you know what a Gordian knot is, but if you go back in the times before Alexander the Great, there was a king that had basically, in order to create a lock, he had a knot that he would tie that nobody else could untie. It was just a special way that he put it together. And it was secured on his chariot, if I remember correctly. And basically they said that they had a little saying on there that if you can untie this knot, you can take over the kingdom. Well, Alexander the Great comes in, and what does he do? Takes a sword and just chops it in half. And he didn't even try to untie it. He just removed it. And I thought, wow. I put quick fixes down here because that's kind of what your subconscious is doing. So if something comes in and gets in the way, it'll wind around somewhere else. And that's why when they talk about energy healing, anything can cause anything. You never know what the subconscious has done in order to create a end round, a roundabout, or a end round. What do you call that? Round the end type way to keep everything working correctly. So all of those things, though, can result in blocks and barriers. Now, interesting thing, I'll tell you right now, and I've mentioned this before, but I look at walls and barriers as two different definitions. Walls keep everybody else out. So when your heart is under attack and you have a heart wall, the bombs are falling and you got a bomb shelter, you've got protection that keeps everybody else out and away from you. But when you have a barrier, that's what's keeping you out. So if you went to somebody else's wall, it would be your barrier. You have to try and figure out how you're going to get past it. And of course, in this work that I do, we release it the same way. We just figure out how thick it is, and then we just start figuring, is it a toxin? Is it emotions? What is it that we're dealing with? And then we go ahead and release these things. Now, one of the hardest things to do is to figure out what these blocks and barriers and stuff are. So I'll put a plug in here for the Ultimate Healer. I have charts for you. There's a section in the body code where you go, and we call it the mental section. And that is kind of a scary thing because you have to figure out, in fact, I'll show you real quick here. Let's bring that up. If we go to, see, this is for most of you, if you've done a session with me and you've done Zoom, then you've seen this stuff. But if we come up here and we say it's an energy and it's mental, when you're first started, you go, what am I going to work with? It's a broadcast message. Well, what's the message? It's a despair anchor. I call them despair statements. What's the statement? What's the image that you're seeing? What's the memory? And you usually end up hoping that it's a will to die or a no will to live. It's the little balls of energy. And so we go ahead and we release these, and that makes the difference for us. But in the figuring out what that is the hard part. And that's why I have all these charts that you just simply go and you just figure it out just like you normally would and say, here's the issues that we're dealing with. So that is what's going to untie this Gordian knot. Okay, so it's released by the subconscious, so we know that now. Let's go on here. The power of the subconscious. Now this is the healer section of it. So here we are, I've got a client, and this is what I'm doing. I connect with the subconscious of the client with permission. I can actually invade somebody's privacy if I wanted to, but I don't do that. And in fact, most of the time, if somebody really doesn't want you to work on you, if you don't want somebody to work on you, let's put it that way, you can block them. It doesn't automatically connect. And so when I'm testing with somebody, I always have them, whether they're sitting here next to me or they're online, all know I'd like to do a quick little prayer. And afterwards, I test, and I use my fingers, and this is a no, and this is a yes. When it sticks, get a little closer here. So this is a no, and this is a yes. And I do that, and then I ask you, give me a yes, give me a no, and give me a good to go. And that means, do I have permission to work with you? And the subconscious will tell me yes, or it'll say no. And sometimes it says no. And I go, and the person, I might know them really, really well, and they'll say, but yes, I'm giving you permission. I said, well, your subconscious has an issue. And so we have to work out what is going on. Usually it's a matter of they aren't opposed to you doing the work. It's just that it just doesn't quite trust you with everything. And if you don't have that trust, which is why I ask, is it good to go? Then you're going to get funky answers. That's just all the way there is. So when I get somebody that I'm getting funky answers, I'll stop and I'll say, do you trust Tom? And usually I'll say, no, not on this area. And I'll say, okay, so what do we need to do to correct that? So once again, this is what we have to do, is be able to connect with the subconscious of the client. And then the client's subconscious will determine what it will allow. Now, craziness, I don't know if I think it's a little bit later I talk about this, but when you're releasing energies, it doesn't necessarily release from everybody. So if you have somebody who's very antagonistic and you are hoping to work on them through somebody else, in other words, if they inherited something or like that, it doesn't necessarily always release from that person. You have to double check and see if that happens. So you are the detective. Now, one time in my life before I was a cook, I was a computer programmer. And my major job, besides writing software for all these little companies, was to go in when the company had a problem with that software, or they had hired somebody else and it doesn't work. And they would say, Tom, can you please come in here? And I would literally go line by line, trying to figure out where the code went wrong. Now, if you are a computer programmer and somebody's asking for help, what you're trying to do is trying to recreate the problem so you can figure it out. It depends on your point of view, and that's kind of where I've always been. So you're detecting what's going on, and that's why I created the Ultimate Healer, was because I needed more than what I was getting with the body code. That was a personal thing. You can make it as hard or you can make it as easy as you want, but I wanted to locate those issues. So once you've located something and you start on a way down through that, I call it going down the rabbit hole, like Alice in Wonderland, you said you never know where you're going to go, because once again, the subconscious had done that Gordian knot thing. So once you find out what's going on, then you translate it from the to the conscious mind of the client. You tell them. Now, when someone's working with me, I mumble all through the session so they can hear me go through it. But does it have to happen? No. Sometimes people just say, fix me, and we don't have to worry about it, and we just go with that. So we facilitate the release by the subconscious, like I mentioned before. Once we've satisfied the subconscious that the conscious mind of the client is ready to go, then it says, okay, we can release it. And that can be done, you know, if you can go on to one of the other masterminds, I show you how to release. But basically, it's a matter of like the magnet going over the top of your head. You can use your hand. There's reflexology. It's all intention, folks. We're doing this through intention. So that's the big thing to remember. Let's go to the next slide here. What you cannot do as a healer. Now, we think we are all powerful, especially when you first start. You think, you hear somebody's got a problem, you're going, oh, I can fix that. And you make an effort to try it, and then when it doesn't work, you're really, really frustrated because you expected it to happen. And I think you always need to go into something with the expectation that it's going to happen. But before I used to suggest, I can fix that, and I could make it better, but I found that I don't force myself on anybody anymore. If you want something done, you simply ask. I'll be happy to do a session for you, but you have to initiate it now. I got a son here that he came home and he was not feeling good, and he mentioned to his mom, and I know he was trying to hint that he wanted a session, but she knows better too. So she says, well, go ask him. And he tells me, he's just, in conversation, he's telling me, yeah, I've got this, it's going this there, but he never asked. So what I do is I wait, because it means something to them if I make them pay in a way with anxiety or whatever it is, and the fact that they actually came to me and asked, versus saying, hey, well, then how about I just do a session? Oh yeah, that'd be great. No, I want them to be invested in somehow. And one of the things that you're going to find here, and I don't think did I put it on here? I don't think I put it on here yet. It'll come up hopefully. And we'll see if we got it. But you can't force something outside of what the client wants to have done. I had a client that she was, I'd worked with her husband. I worked with her. I knew that, I don't know if it was a second marriage or whatever. I just knew that they'd been married previously. And we'd done fantastic work with her. We would always do a session before she went. And I know there's the release that you put your feet in the water, and they have them in a lot of wellness centers. And the water would turn black. And the people at the wellness center were just like amazed. And I actually got into there and taught them how to do it. And one of their people became an emotion code practitioner. So she would come to me, and we had a pretty good thing going on as far as a relationship and trust. And I was working on a section. She was sitting here next to me, and something was I just was getting weird answers. And I said, well, this is something about a marriage. I said, how many times have you been married? And she said, 3 times. I said, okay, well, I think it's your second marriage that this happened. And we had weird answers. Anyway, we finished the time. She went home. She started talking to her husband. And apparently, I got an email a little bit later, which is why I know this happens. She says, I was talking with my husband, and he says that I need to tell you something. He says you're going to find out anyway, because they always believe I can find out anything by testing. She says, I've really been married 5 times. I told you it was 3 because people don't think there's something wrong with me if I'm only married 3 times. I'm just like going, okay, well, I really don't care. It's really not a big thing to me, but for her, it was a big deal. And so, you know what? What happened after that? We had some phenomenal sessions again, because that was off her chest. She didn't have to worry about it. But if there's something outside your subconscious, the client's subconscious, that they don't want you in, you're going to get weird answers, which is why when I do my testing, I do all the testing on me. I never test on the client. Now, some people have different opinions about that, but it's because when I go like this, I can feel the difference. If I said, is there anything else we need to do? And it goes, kind of pops through and I can feel it. I said, okay, is there something hidden? No. Is there something private? Yes. Or is there something secret? No. So the differences is that when it's hidden, it's something that just hasn't come out yet, and the subconscious hasn't let the consciousness know yet, but it's just not something right out there. And a lot of times they'll say, it's okay, we've cleared that area, it's pretty good. And then I find out, is it hidden? And that's usually when we find a real issue. Something in there that is built down there, and it just didn't feel like it was worthy to bring it up. That was the subconscious. The second one is it's secret. Well, that's something that the consciousness does not know what the subconscious is dealing with. And it's been kept that way for purpose. So when I ask, I said, is it okay if we share? And can we know more? And sometimes it's secret from Tom. We don't need to know everything when we do this work. So I will go ahead, I'll release that, and that's when I find out. And then there's private. Private is I'm not sure I trust you to give you this information. So I asked those three different things, and it seems to make, so far it's worked out really good. So when I asked that question, is it private? I said, can I know? And usually the answer is yes. On some things it says no. I said, can we just release this without discussing it? And sometimes it'll say yes, sometimes it says no. So what happens on that, anytime I get a no where I don't have access, I'll say, is there something I can do to give myself access, or where you will trust me enough to do it? And sometimes it's working on something that will seem absolutely crazy, and then it will happen. And I'll test back. One was, really, the subconscious was concerned that I wouldn't go the distance to really figure out what the issue was. And when I was doing crazy stuff, because I'm always open, and it was giving me one word at a time. I was having to go to books and everything else to try and figure it out and then piece it all together. And the subconscious says, okay, you're after my best interest. I will now share this with you and curb some of your turmoil and trying to come up with this. So these are things you can't do. So you can't force it. You can't release an energy from a client's enemy if the enemy is not willing to receive it. So I have, for example, my wife's ex-husband. I have these children that, he is their father. And when I get something there and I'm releasing it, and I'll simply ask, can I release it from him? Because he inherited it. And the answer will be no. And I said, okay. So you just got to expect that you're going to have to respect this person. And I said, is there a reason why? And it's, yeah, he doesn't like me, or he didn't like the situation, or he doesn't believe in what we're doing. Perfectly okay. Can I bypass him? Absolutely. So if this came from great grandma, we can take care of a couple of them, but he's not in the group. He has to get this cleared on his own. That makes sense? So next thing is, you can't heal using your will. In other words, I'm going to heal you, Zappo, and it's because of me. You got to remember where healing really comes from. It comes from the light. It comes from above. It comes from a higher source. It comes from the client willing to finally be able to release that burden that they've been carrying around. So it's not about you. It's about your client, completely and fully. So if you are out there trying to do that, I'll tell you right now, the subconscious of the client's going to pick up on that, and they're not going to let you do what you need to have done. So now, the other thing we don't do is we do not diagnose illnesses, diseases. We do not predict the future. We don't make promises that we can do something, because you know what? It's really not up to us. We are literally there to facilitate the release of blocks of energy. And you need to make sure that that happens. So let me tell you a quick story. Some of you have heard this, but I have a dear friend who when I first started, this is even before I got into this is back in my restaurant days, very close friend. And she would have, when I started doing this, I started working with her because she had issues that she wanted to take up just like everybody else, but I never charged her. I just refused to charge her because she was family. In fact, we both shared the same birthday. So it was a matter of working with her. And I worked with her over the years. So 10 years, just probably 10 years. And then she got really sick a couple of years ago. And I would work with her. And I said, you know what? She had some issues. I said, you need to go see a doctor. Oh, no, 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 no. I don't want a doctor to see me. She was a little overweight and she did not want, she was older and she didn't want the doctor to see places where she didn't want them to see. And so she was very self-conscious of that and she refused. And what she told her daughter when it got really, really serious, and she ended up getting cancer and she passed away not too long ago because she wouldn't go into the doctor. Now, I told her she needed to do that. But a lot of times we feel, oh no, we can heal this. We can release this. We can get that energy out. Well, we know that cancer and all these imbalances come from imbalances of the body. It could be emotional. It could be some accident that you were in, or it could be inherited. But if you're holding that inside, that chi inside will just churn and the body has to purge somehow. And that's usually what it creates these energies. She got cancer and it was pretty bad and she suffered. And I kept working with her, but I kept telling her, you gotta go in, you gotta go in. Well, she told her friends, she had a couple friends and her daughter, that, oh, Tom says I'll be healed. Now, Tom did not say that. Tom said that you could be, but you need to go see the doctor. So you need to be really, really careful, because what I found out by chance, because when I knew she was going to die, I just drove up to her. I went and saw her, and it was nice to see her, and she fully expected to recover. And she didn't. She passed away. And then I found out from her friend, who was just really pissed off at me, because she said, well, she said you were gonna, that she was gonna be healed. And I told her, I said, no, no, no. I told her many, many times. And at the end, she says, yes, he did tell me. And everybody thought that she was just trying to help me out because they were gonna sue me for giving her false information. Now, one of the things you need to, as a practitioner, if you're doing this with anybody, you need to make sure that you understand, you tell them up front. I have disclaimers on my website. When you sign up for a session, you have to say, yes, I read the terms and agreement. In that, it says that I am not a doctor. I cannot diagnose. You need to make sure you see your medical physician. I'm covered. But it was really frustrating for me to find out that they were going to come after me because they thought that I had told her that she did not need to see a doctor. So be very, very careful on that. So let's move forward. Okay, any questions so far? Just unmute yourself and ask if you got a question about your role as a healer, the job of the client, how the subconscious works. Anybody got a question?
Well, I more so had a question about what you were just talking about there with the issue where they thought you said they could heal. Do you have insurance? Do you have, how are you covered? Are you covered?
Yeah, I am covered. There is a Pastoral Medical Association.
Yep, the PMA. Yep.
Yeah, PMA. And what they do is they will interview you, and then they will determine if you're like a full-time thing. I need to readdress that, but I just pay X amount per month, and they cover me on that. Now, I just moved, so I got to figure out and adjust that, see what's going on. But that's one of the ways you can do that. Now, the reason they go through Pastoral Medical Association, they are the ones that insure chiropractors, because sometimes chiropractors can't get regular medical insurance because sometimes they think they're not medical people, but of course they are. But anytime, like a massage therapist, there's a number of different things that you can do. That's one way that you can go around. Does that answer your question?
Yes, it does.
Okay, so there's ways you can do that. And then once again, protect yourself. Make sure that you've got disclaimers on your websites. What I do is I literally go out and see Dr. Nelson's website, and he's got a little disclaimer down there, and I figure if it's good enough for him, I can probably use that and be able to have that work for me too. So just be sure that you are not telling people that you're going to heal them, because that is something that comes from within. Now, is it possible for somebody to be healed by touch or anything else like that? Absolutely. Are there gifts of the spirit that are given to people to do that? I know people that have been able to touch somebody and be healed. I believe that's possible. I believe that you can get yourself to the state that you can be the conduit for the upper energies to be able to come to that person. Faith, and we have something what we call in our church as a priesthood blessing. And it's never to sit in front that's as more important than getting a blessing or trying to do everything you can. But it's also your job as a client to try and figure out what it is that you can do to make yourself better. Now, there's some churches out there, they say you can't use doctors. Well, I believe that we've been given different roles and different things that we can be able to do. And quite frankly, I was not a healer when I started. And what I did was I found out that as I studied and I was diligent and I kept working with it, and then I asked again and it said yes. I'm going, woohoo! Okay, so this is a gift you can create. You can do this all day long, and there's hundreds of different gifts that people have. So if you focus on something and you work at it and you're diligent, I believe God will give you that gift and he will empower you. So hopefully that's an answer. Is there another question out there? So what we'll do is we'll move on then. How's that? If you got a question later, you have another opportunity. So let's see here. So what's going on? The client isn't healing or shows little progress. Nothing frustrates me more on a personal level, and I incorporate prayer. I will pray for my clients. I know that they're going through certain things that they need to do. Maybe it's a matter of something they have to do on their part. I do everything I can possibly can. I say a prayer before I do the work. I'm just not seeing anything going on. And sometimes it's just a matter of we're almost there, and there's just a lot of clearing that has to go on. I used to believe that when we came to this earth, because I believe we have past lives, so I don't believe in the reincarnation thing, but I do believe that we have progressed through different things. We've moved on each time we progress. And I thought that when we came to this earth that we started fresh. Everybody's the same. Heck no. We went through experiences beforehand, and that's what was really kind of blew me away was when I found out that I had brought stuff with me. I was kind of mad. I'm going, what is this? I said, why couldn't I have taken care of that before? And he says, you didn't have the means to do it. I said, am I supposed to do that here? And they said, yeah, you're supposed to wrap that up now or figure out, what's going on, because once again, you're progressing. So let's look and see what else I got on here. Whose responsibility, the client versus the healer? Okay, so we're going to break this down here real quick. Okay, so what would keep them from healing? So this is where my charts come in. The reasons I created them was because I'm like, I can't remember everything. I just am not that great at remembering things that I knew before. And I do a little practice and I find, oh, this works so good on this client. I need to remember that. And if I didn't write it down or if I didn't put it into a chart, I would forget it and I'd have to relearn it again. So what would keep them from healing? So here are 8 different items. I have some more. I got some more on here. But agency of the client. You got to remember, every one of us has agency. Now, agency has consequences. Sometimes it used to say, oh yeah, we have free agency. Well, the free part is the fact that you can choose one way or the other. You still have consequences. So if you don't pay your bills, the consequence is that they're going to come after you. But if you pay your bills and nothing's, the good part is that they may give you more credit. They may give you more recognition. But there's always an offset for your choices. But as a client, you may not be aware that the subconscious has got some things that it still has issues with, and it drops down to the next one. It's not safe yet. Now, that happens frequently with weight release. Weight release, when like I said, I bring in other things. I like to use John Gabriel's method, and he had 8 different things or 7 different things that he said was associated with weight release. 1 was your fat programs turned on. 2, nutritional famine, digestion issues, toxins, sleep activating cortisol levels, mental stress, emotional stress versus emotional obesity, dieting. And then I've added a few more on here, like German new medicine, conflicts, unresolved, and then belief systems. So there's a lot of different things that could cause that. When I found that somebody was losing weight, I'm going, woohoo, I found the way. But everybody is different, and there's different things going on. And if something's not releasing and they're not getting better, it's probably because the subconscious feels at this point it's not safe for that particular issue to be resolved. Torques me off because I would love to release the rest of this weight. But apparently it's not safe. Sometimes it's an identity. And I ask myself right now, Tom, is this, give me a yes, give me a no. Is it safe for me to release my weight? And the answer is yes. Okay, so now I guess I got to work on portions now. So anyway, so we have a safe yet. Next thing is a belief system. If you don't believe, or you have a belief that, I was running into this the other day, this person felt that they didn't deserve to heal. They were punishing themselves. Kind of goes with the next one. It says punishing self, which is what I put that up there for. Because their belief system says that, the only way this can be done is this, this, and this. Let's use the weight again. This is a belief system. It's like it could be something that was inherited. Ooh, we got to hustle here. Something that was inherited. So she was not releasing the weight because of something that she saw her mother do. Her mother had released weight, gotten looking pretty good, and then she cheated on her dad. And that really left a mark on that person I was working with. And so at that point, they felt that, and she didn't realize that, but she had a core belief system that if she lost weight, she would cheat on her husband. And she liked this guy. She loved him. She didn't want to cheat on him. She automatically thought that those were the two that were associated. So what had to happen was that that belief system had to be removed and replaced with you can be fit and trim and still be faithful. And after that, she dropped the weight. That was her trigger that would allow the body to release it. Another one, like I said, they were punishing themselves. They just felt that they were not worthy and that they had to, because of something that had happened in the past. I don't remember it. I don't think this was inherited. I think this is something she experienced, but she thought, I'm just not worthy to do this. And it just was not releasing. The next one could be a saboteur, somebody else that was causing this issue. Another one could be low frequencies. In other words, they're always thinking negatively. They're looking for that comfort some way until they can get the frequencies up to where they could do it. Yeah, yesterday, most of you know I give an energy refill. When I do a session on somebody, I'm releasing energies. And then I learned through a Qigong master that you need to replace the energy with good energy. So now I do kind of like a essential oil thing where, you've got it's a combination, let's put it that way. You got the love of God, that's what I was looking for. And then I might stick in a little bit of happiness. I might put a little confidence in there and try and infuse that in that energy as I fill you up before I let you go. So that I actually have found that when I'm working with somebody, right off the bat, one the other day, I had to give her an energy refill just so we could do the session. I thought, wow. So low frequencies will keep your body from doing things. Permission. Now, once again, the subconscious, or, like we talk about 5.5 parts of you. I don't know if I've done that with you all, but there's 5.5 parts of you. There's consciousness, subconscious, the ego, the inner child, and something I call the keeper. And the half part is that all of these build the personality and your identity. So what can happen is that one of those can get really torqued off, or you just didn't know your inner child could be really, really frustrated, and it's no longer, I ask 4 questions. It's not helping you. I ask 4 questions. Do you trust Tom, your practitioner? And if it's a yes, I can just tick that one off and just work on the next one. The next one is, do you trust yourself? And at the name of the person, whether it's Marcy or George or whatever, do you trust George? And if it comes back and says no, and I ask that for each one of these, then I know that, okay, there's an issue there. We got to try and clear that out. Next one is, do you feel appreciated? And the last one is, are you fighting? Are you helping? Or are you neutral? So what's the status? And what I do is a body synchronization. So that helps when it comes down to the permission part. And then you have to have faith and trust. And then, of course, there's always that personal part you got to do too. The practitioner cannot do it all. I wish we could, but we just can't. So I used to take complete responsibility for what I did. And I was very frustrated many times, especially when this happened. And then I went to a holistic healing festival, and I traded sessions with this lady, and she worked with me, and she said, she did a whole completely different modality. She said, you're taking responsibility for healing these people. I said, yeah, I sure am. It's up to me. If they're not getting better, there's something I'm doing wrong. And she goes, that's not true. And she helped me walk through this process. And she said, are you willing to release this responsibility? And I'm like, and I was struggling. It was really a big conflict for me. And I said, she says, you got to do it. She says, you got to do it. Finally, I got to the point where I said, okay, I'm going to go ahead and release that responsibility. She says, they have agency. They can do whatever they want. They can, it's their responsibility to do their healing. You have responsibility for your own healing. And it's taken me a while. So it's been a year and a half probably, and I finally have gotten to that point where I realized that all I can do is all I can do. And that's the important part for that part of it. And I'll do anything I can to help them. So I would constantly worry about their welfare and me failing them. So my freedom reverse, okay, are you ready to release that responsibility? And that was a big thing for me. That was my aha moment when it comes to this. Okay, so remember, you can't force somebody out of their will. You can't release somebody, or sometimes you can't release energies from another person inherited because they just aren't on your team. And that's why I was asked right up front, can I work with you? And does you trust me? Or is it good to go, basically? And if I get a no, I try and figure that out. But other people, it's not important. You can bypass them. Diagnose, we can't do any diagnosing. We can't do, and then make promises to predict the future. And newsflash, folks, you are not God. I don't know if you knew that or not, but for me, you feel like you can do anything. You got to remember, you are on a journey. There's always going to be opposition, and that is part of it. And we are on God's timeline. So is the client. So we do what we can with what we have. We have always existed. We're doing the best we can. So I've been doing if you haven't been out for the last MasterMind, if you missed it, you want to go out and listen to it. It's in season 2. It's called The Happiness Factor. So one of the things I've been working on is trying to realize that I can be happy no matter what is going on. And they call it happy for no reason. So you've got, remember, there's 4 different types of happiness. There's the unhappy, when you're down in the dumps, and it's darkness, and you just feel anxiety all the time. Then there's the happy for bad reasons, which is when you are maybe taking a drug, or you're taking, sugar or chocolate, or you're doing something that is one of your guilty pleasures to try and make you feel happy. The next one is happy for good reasons, which is you've helped somebody, you have, like, I got money in my bank, I've just got a good job, I'll be happy when I have that more money thing, I'll be happy when I find love, that kind of happiness that you have. But in reality, there's only one happy for no reason, and it doesn't matter what the other stuff is. It's a way of mind. It's a gratitude that you have. You always look around. I'm grateful. I went out today and I was like, I'm grateful for the wonderful weather. For some of you, it's cold, but here it was a lovely 66 degrees, which is my favorite temperature. So I'm just like, I can roll my window down. I'm happy. And it's just realizing that it doesn't matter what happens. We can be happy for no reason. So questions so far? Again, is there any questions? I hear nothing. So let's move on. I want to appreciate everybody that was here. Hopefully this was helpful in understanding some things that you know, everybody's trying to work with. So frustrating when something's not moving. So what you have to do ultimately is to try and look at it from another point of view and take an active part. In other words, if you are the client, and I have a wonderful client, she's listening today, and she is so friggin' awesome. She gets out there and she says, is it this, is it this, is it this? She's doing research. She's gonna figure it out. John Gabriel, for example, and this is a weight issue, he was 420 pounds. Nothing worked for him. And finally, he was in Australia. He came up to America and he spent time with Dr. Atkins and nothing worked. Here he is, he's a big guy. You know, when you walk into a place, they see you, they go, and I'm still a pretty big guy. So I walk in and they go, well, he really doesn't need that lunch. Well, you know, there's something holding it there, something keeping it there. Well, John got tired of that even after Dr. Atkins told him that, John, you're just gonna always be fat. You don't tell somebody that. But it motivated John to go out and figure out what it is. He's been 160 pounds now for over 10 years. He figured out what was going on. Now he helps other people do it, and this without dieting. So I always love, it's called the Gabriel method. And I just like the concept, and I'm working on it. I'm actually about 25 pounds lighter than I was last year at this time. So I just figured, yeah, just keep it up. I just got to get, for some reason, all my shirts have this bump in front. I just can't figure it out. It makes it look uneven on my shirts. So with that being said, I want to thank you all for being here, and I am going to be off to another class. I love you all. Thank you for being here. Any other quick comments before we leave? Boy, you guys are all silent group tonight. All right.
Thank you.
Oh, you betcha. My pleasure. And I suppose I could quit sharing here too. There we go. You can see me again. All right. I will talk to you all soon. Hopefully, every 2 weeks we try and do this. Did that help you out? Or did it make you more frustrated? Ms. Shar?
Yeah, a little frustrated. It helps. It helps, yeah.
But hopefully it gives you a different idea too.
Yeah.
Different point of view, because there's different ways we can look at it. You actually, I know we're going to figure it out.
Yeah, I'm going to get there.
Yes.
I don't give up.
Yes, you are. Okay,
Thank
everybody
you
else.
guys. Have a good night.
Yep.